Hey friends, happy Thursday. I wanted to come in here and talk about emotional eating because first of all, I was going to wait and cover this topic a week from now. But I decided to go ahead and do it today because of all the things that are going on in the world right now. There's so much heaviness. I feel it. So many emotions. I know we all feel it. We are all really in it. We're in it right now when it comes to stress and anxiety and emotions and the potential to struggle with emotional eating. So I decided to go ahead and talk about it today, even though I was going to wait until some of our new folks had a chance to dig into their nutrition plans a little bit more. I want to go ahead and cover it. So I wanted to make this video and talk about some tips for overcoming emotional eating and my own personal things that I've learned from my own personal journey, and some encouragement for you guys right now. If you are doing the 2B Mindset program or the Ultimate Portion Fix program, you will see a video from Ilana or Autumn in there talking about emotional eating. But I wanted to also cover some things in here because some of you are following the basic nutrition program, and I also wanted to share some of my own personal tips from my own experience. So first things first, the first thing, wow, I'm really having trouble with my words right now. The first thing that we need to understand in order to overcome emotional eating is that we need to accept and understand that it does not solve anything. Emotional eating typically is when we are looking for a dose of dopamine. It is really what it comes down to in brain chemistry. We're looking for that comfort. We're looking for to take the edge off of our anxieties or our worries or our anger. We're looking for just a little bit of a dopamine kick. And so the problem is if we don't actually address the problem, or if we can't address the problem, if it's outside of our control, we will need that same dopamine kick a little while later because that problem still exists. And if we're turning to unhealthy foods in order to get that dopamine kick and to temporarily make ourselves feel good, we're going to want to turn to that same unhealthy food over and over and over and over again. And that's how we get caught in this emotional eating cycle, which then can even turn into punishing ourselves with food and having a negative relationship with food. It can really start to get out of control, and that's where I was. So the first thing that we have to understand is that it does not help. We throw around phrases like chocolate can solve anything, and there's all the memes out there about moms and their wine and how we need it, but those things don't actually help solve the problem. It just makes us feel better temporarily. And if we're doing that in an unhealthy way with unhealthy foods, then it's also causing us harm. And every time we do it, it's causing us harm. If in the case of chocolate or unhealthy, for me it was cookies, chocolate too, but a lot of times cookies. It was sabotaging my weight loss goals. I was then beating myself up afterwards about it. The sugar is of course not good for my digestive system, not good for my energy, not helping me in any way. It's actually causing my body harm. Instead of helping something. So I'm making the problem worse for myself by turning to cookies every time I'm stressed. Okay? So that's the first thing we need to accept. The other thing that I want to share with you guys right now, because of what's going on all around us and so much stress and just everything, it would be really easy right now to tell ourselves that this is not the time to try and fix this. This is not the time to worry about this type of thing. But I want to point out to you that the only time that you can break a cycle of emotional eating is when you are in that place, that situation, that emotional space that triggers emotional eating. And so in that respect, this is the time because we are all in it. We are really in it right now. So I want to point that out to you. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. There is probably not another time in my life that I have experienced where I have needed this more. I'm going to say it like that. because of all the things that are going on. That's why I've decided to talk about this today. That's why I am going to share the tips and tools and ideas that we have. That's why I want to do this nutrition group right now, because we need it now more than ever. And so don't tell yourself this isn't the time to break that habit. When you're in that space where you feel like you need food to get through the day, that is the only time you can break that habit. Okay? When we're feeling like everything is hunky-dory, that's not the time to break that. You can't break that habit then. So the way that we break that habit is by being in that space where we normally would turn to food or unhealthy foods or trigger foods, and choosing something differently. So for example, I went through a time where I was under a lot of stress with my own physical health, with financial stress, with the physical health of family members, and then I had job stress on top of that. And I had started my health and fitness journey, and I was really working on doing better. And then I had this day that was like the day everything went wrong. It was really insanely stressful, high pressure, and it's just, things were just going wrong all over the place. And I remember getting through that day. I had to go down and drop off a proposal, and it turned into a whole mess because we had scrambled to do something at the last minute and we messed it up, and I had to fix it before I could turn it in, all these things. I won't go into the whole story, but it was a day of high stress, like all day long. And so I get that proposal dropped off. We lost that proposal, by the way. I finally got the proposal dropped off, and I'm driving home, got everything taken care of, dropped it off. I'm getting ready to drive home, and it's going to be a couple hours drive home. And normally, after I finished the proposal, I would reward myself, aka numb the anxiety and the stress that I was feeling with food, and I would do that with a cookie and coffee, typically. Neither one of those things, by the way, was helping me at all in that situation. More caffeine is only going to make me more stressed, and more sugar is only going to harm my goals and make me feel bad, and also not going to do anything to really relieve my stress in the long run. So that was my typical MO. So that day, I'm telling myself, man, if there was ever a day where I've earned it, it was today. And I'm going into Starbucks and about to order my coffee and a cookie, and I started thinking, this is not going to do me any good. It's not going to help. It's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to do anything for the stress that I'm feeling, except it's just going to temporarily give me that dopamine fix. I knew this. And so going into there, I decided to do something different this time. Instead of getting my coffee and a cookie, I got a green tea, had a little caffeine to keep me awake from the drive home. I was exhausted, but not so much, just enough for what I needed at that time. And I got some fresh fruit instead of a cookie. Not the best choices, but a vast improvement over what had been my go-to. And so I did that. And then I got home, and instead of, like I typically would have after a long and stressful day, instead of turning on the TV and sitting down and relaxing because I'd earned some Netflix time, I drank a shake and I turned on my workout and pressed play. And I think it was even my second workout of the day, but I decided to just do some yoga to move my body and relax a little bit. And the difference was phenomenal. Typically, it would take me a couple of days to feel like I recovered from a stressful day like that. But by the time I finished my workout and, was ready to move on with my evening, I felt so much better. And so for me, it was a day and night difference between how long it took me to recover from that stressful day versus how long it typically would have taken me to recover from a stressful day like that. And it was all because of those choices that I made, those simple choices. So the only way to break that cycle is to choose something better. Choose something that's actually going to benefit you in some way. And so what I want us to do in order to kind of get a jump on this, like I said, in that moment when you're really wanting to emotionally eat, that is when you have to take the action to break the cycle. We can't do it right now unless you are like really physically wanting to go emotional eat right now. But what we can do right now is identify the last 3 to 5 times that you have turned to food for comfort or to relieve stress and anxiety, and write them down. What did you eat? Why did you eat it? And when did you eat it? Like what time of day? And those 3 things are really going to help us as we start to dig into this a little bit more throughout the coming weeks. I'm going to start to talk about physical cravings versus cravings for emotional eating, and a few tips on how you can kind of tell the difference. Because there are some flags that you can start to notice if you start writing these things down. So if you're tracking your food for 2B mindset, you're already going to be writing down what you eat, what time you eat, and I just would like for you to add why you ate it. Was it because you were anxious? Was it because you were really hungry and it was dinner time? All these things. Write down those details. Write down try to think the last 3 to 5 times you turned to food for emotional eating reasons, and write down what triggered that and what you turned to. Because those are going to be important things to help you come up with a plan for what you can do differently. And that's what I want you to do next. So you look at those 3 to 5 things that you wrote down, and then I want you to look at them and say, okay, how can I make a change that instead of being a negative for my health and well-being, how can I handle this same stressful situation in a way that actually turns it into a positive for my health and well-being? Okay, so for example, in that moment, I chose to have some fruit instead of a cookie. Fruit does still have some sugar, but it also has great nutrients in it that we need, okay? And it's part of your healthy diet. So having some fruit is a better choice than having a cookie. I also chose to go home and have a shake, which helps our body manage stress and puts nutrients into our body that helps us recover from both physical stress like exercise, but also emotional stress and mental stress too, because your body really experiences those things in the same way from a physical and body chemistry standpoint in a lot of ways. They're very similar. So I chose to put dense nutrition into my body by having a shake, by eating some fruit, and then I chose to burn off the stress and cortisol. That was what I was feeling that was triggering me to eat, was intense anxiety and stress, which can feel like anger sometimes. And there was that too. But so that exercise helped burn off that cortisol from that stress, helped me relax my mind and my body. And those were the 2 things that I did differently that really made a big difference. So I want you to look at what is causing you to turn to food. And exercise is in a lot of cases very helpful. Whether you're feeling depressed or sad, exercise is a way to get that endorphin boost and increase your serotonin in a way that is healthy for you. Moderate exercise. I don't recommend, if you find that you're exercising for like 2 hours a day, kind of obsessively, then you might be using that as a crutch as well. And I do know some people do that. I am not the type of person who is at risk of ever, I think, doing that. That's not me. Food is my go-to, not exercise. I exercise because I need it in moderate amounts, and it really does help. So I do recommend that as a healthy option in healthy amounts, using exercise to burn off stress, to increase endorphins, to change your brain chemistry, to get oxygen to your blood cells. All the amazing benefits that exercise gives us for our physical and mental health we can get in 30 minutes a day or so of exercise. So I do recommend doing that. Can you get your workout in instead? Sometimes the time of day when you work out can be played with to address emotional eating, and like if your stress happens at a certain time of day. I noticed this when I was working. Working out before work helped me show up in a much more energetic, mentally clear way. I was much more effective and productive at work. But working out after work helped me burn off the stressful day so much better. And so sometimes I did kind of double up. I'd do my workout and then I'd do yoga after work to kind of just burn off some steam. So those are things you can think about. Do you typically feel extremely stressed at some point in your day, and can you get some exercise in after that to help burn off that cortisol? So think about those things. If you want some suggestions on how you can specifically and personally address certain emotional eating patterns that you know you have, I would love it if you felt comfortable to put that in the comments so that we can talk about it, all of us together, and other people can see it. Because if you're struggling with it, chances are somebody else already is or has or is going to, and can either share some tips that they've learned, or they can learn something from you and from your experience. And so I want to encourage you to share it in the comments in our group, and we can talk about it. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can message me and I will help you one-on-one. It's totally fine. So choose, look at your 3 to 5 most recent emotional eating experiences and come up with a plan for what you're going to do differently when that same situation happens again. Write it down, and that way you know, okay, this is what I'm going to do. If I am feeling, frustrated with my children, I am going to, instead of, turning to the chips in the closet, in the cabinet or whatever, in the pantry, instead of turning to those, I am going to go for a walk. I am going to go have some quiet time in my room and read a good book. I am going to send them to their rooms and do my workout. I am going, whatever it might be that you think could be a good solution, there's room for trial and error here. Okay, we're figuring this out, and there's a certain element of each of us has to figure it out for ourselves. Okay, the thing that worked for me in my situation may not be the best thing for you in your situation, but there are a lot of things that we can try. And so if you aren't sure what to try, if you've tried something that's not working, you need some new ideas, let us know and we'll figure this out together. So those are my tips. I want to encourage you in this time as much as possible to work on breaking that cycle. Because if you can break that cycle right now with everything that's going on, it's going to be very powerful for you moving forward with a stronger is not the word I'm looking for, a healthier way of managing stress and anxiety and fear and all these emotions in the future. So we're looking for healthy ways that we can address the emotions that we have, that we are currently using food to kind of numb. Does that make sense? Share below your struggles with emotional eating. I'll share some. I shared one of my past ones. I'll share one of my more recent ones. And let's talk about it. Let's come up with some solutions. Okay, there is a lot of just problem solving that goes into this, but we have to be willing to actually solve the problem and to not just keep kind of making excuses for it. Okay, so that's a little bit of tough love, a little bit of encouragement. I hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you guys all soon. Okay.